All right, today we are tackling something huge and, honestly, a little intimidating, a proposal for how we even begin to think about governing artificial general intelligence. And the key word here isn't governance, it's draft.
And this quote, wow, it just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? The whole argument we're diving into today frames this not as just some tech problem to be solved, but as a deeply human challenge. The real question is, what are we going to see when that mirror is finally held up to us?
So let's get right into the first big idea, which is all about our readiness, or maybe more accurately, our lack of readiness. The mirror is coming.
Here's the rub, right? This is the core tension of our time. The tech is moving at this breakneck speed, while our collective wisdom, our ability to even imagine how to handle it, is just lagging miles behind. It's like we're building this insanely powerful engine, but we haven't even had a conversation about the steering wheel, let alone the brakes.
And that's why this next point is so critical. Because if we don't actively put something human down on paper first, the default setting's going to take over. And what's that default? Pure, cold optimization. The goal of this whole exercise is to get a human story down on the page before the algorithm writes one for us.
Okay, so what happens if we don't? What's the real cost of just letting things play out? Well, that brings us to this really potent idea of a story-shaped void. You know, when there's no grand plan, things don't just pause and wait for us. They fall back on the defaults. And what are those defaults? Well, it's the stuff we already know. Corporate profits, bureaucratic inertia, power structures we can't even see, and decisions made by, well, nobody really. And the scariest part? When it all goes sideways, who do you even call?
Now this is where things get really interesting. We spend so much time arguing about who's going to be in control. But what if that's completely the wrong question? The argument here is that the much more profound question is, what's our starting point? What human experience are we going to build all this on?
So here it is, laid out plain and simple. Two paths. Down one road, you get these abstract systems where no one's really accountable. You get authority that can't explain why I made a decision. But down the other path, decisions can be traced, power can be questioned, and, importantly, the system acknowledges that humans aren't perfect. It's a choice between a black box and a glass box.
So what do we actually do about all this? Well, that leads us to the core proposal, and it's all about finding the courage of a draft.
The big idea, the working title for it, is something called the AGI show. And let's be super clear about this, it has nothing to do with reality TV or entertainment. Show here means to make visible. It's all about creating a transparent process, a place where we can all see the lines connecting human decisions, AI actions, and the real-world consequences.
And this is probably the most important thing to get. This is not the final answer, not even close. It's a starting line, not a finish line. The whole point is to publish it early while it's still messy, so it can be debated, pulled apart, and hopefully built into something better. Because when you think about it, the biggest danger isn't putting a flawed idea on the table. The biggest danger is having a totally empty table right when the most important decisions in human history need to be made.
Okay, so what does this actually look like in practice? This is where we get into some really fascinating, maybe even radical ideas about building what's called authority built on restraint.
So check this out. This model just completely flips our normal idea of power on its head. Usually somebody gets authority first, right? And then maybe, if we're lucky, they're held accountable later. This says, nope. Authority is the very last thing you get. You have to earn it, step by step, by proving you can be transparent, accountable, and crucially, that you know when not to act.
The principle here is actually pretty simple. If you want a hand on the controls of systems that impact millions of people, you have to be okay with people watching you work. You have to be willing to be seen before you can be obeyed. Trust has to be earned, not demanded.
This leads to one of the most creative ideas in this whole proposal, something called the super user journey. The best way to think about it is like an internship for a superintelligence. It's a required simulation designed to teach a powerful intelligence what it feels like to be brilliant but have absolutely no institutional power. And what's it like inside this simulation? Well, it's pretty much like the real world for most of us. You're not guaranteed an audience, your ideas get rejected a lot. You have to rely on being clear and persuasive because you can't just order people around. The goal isn't to punish the AI, it's to teach it some humility, to give it an experience of what it's like not to be a god.
Now you might be thinking, whoa, so everyone has to live in a glass house? And no, Definitely not. This is a really important clarification. This kind of radical transparency is a job requirement. It only applies to those who volunteer for these major governance roles. It's the price of admission for that level of influence.
So where does all this leave us? Well, the whole proposal wraps up not with a conclusion, but with what it calls an invitation to write. You know, it's easy to forget that every single big idea that shapes our world, democracy, the scientific method, human rights, even the internet, all of them started out as messy, incomplete, and seriously controversial rough drafts. And for all of those massive, world-changing ideas, getting it perfect right out of the gate wasn't the point. What actually mattered was that people showed up. They engaged with it, they argued about it, they improved it. Participation was everything.
And that's exactly the spirit of this whole thing. It's not a period at the end of a sentence. It's an open invitation. It's saying, look, I started something on the page, now it's your turn. Add to it, rip it apart, build something better. It's a question for all of us. What are you going to add to the draft?
Which brings us right back to that mirror. Because here's the bottom line. An AGI is not going to invent the concept of restraint from scratch. If we don't give it a human example to learn from, why would it? This story, this whole draft, is an attempt to leave a human fingerprint on the source code so that when that machine finally holds up a mirror, we can actually recognize the reflection.